Good afternoon, Rotarians and guests. My name is Peter Davis and it's my privilege to be your MC for today. We would like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri and Boonwurrung people of the Kulin Nation and also pay our respects to Elders past, present and future, and extend that to all Indigenous Australians present today. Welcome to our hybrid meeting and those online, as well as those in the room. Please ensure your glass is charged for the Royal Toast by President Chris. And now I pass over to Stephen Lake to give us thanks.
Every year for over a decade, with other club members, I annually participate in 3 events this week. The Shrine of Remembrance service for the Battle of Amiens on the 8th of August, that's our 08 committee, the Monash Medal presentation, which will be today, and the Monash commemorative service on Friday in the Queen's Hall and Legislative Assembly Chamber of State Parliament. Yesterday when I arrived at the shrine, it was a little bit foggy and a little bit cold. And as I sat in the sanctuary warming myself up, I reflected on John Monash, engineer, citizen, soldier, and of something that the age said of him immediately after his death. He believed firmly in the maximum of mechanical resources to win a battle, not in the employment of infantry merely to expose itself to a merciless and withering artillery and machine gun fire, or to impale themselves on hostile bayonets, but to advance steadily and relentlessly to the goal under protection of the greatest possible array of mechanical forces and auxiliaries. Timed artillery barrages, tanks, armoured cars and aircraft. He economised human lives to the utmost of his ability. The application of mechanical resources in the Battle of Amiens proved a revelation. Apart from the gigantic preparations and the mode of carrying them out, the orders of Sir John Monash's corps leader were models of thoroughness, order and precision. Nothing was left to haphazard improvisation. And Ludendorff described the events as Germany's Black Day in the history of the war. I hope that we can always have leaders in our military with such skills who can ensure the safety or the maximum possible safety of our men and women who stand between us and the challenges of today's global world. Thank you.
Rotarians and guests, a toast to Australia and Rotary International. Australia and Rotary International. Thank you. May you please remain standing. Vale Tony Koski OAM. Anthony Tony Koski OAM, 18 April 1941 to 4 August 2023, 82 years. Today it is my sad duty to inform the club of the passing of Tony Koski OAM. Tony was a beloved member of the club for over 44 years, and during that time he endeared himself to everybody who had the joy of working with him. I don't think he would mind me describing him as the club's little big man. Not big in stature, but a giant in achievements in the club. Tony Koski was born in Melbourne, 1941, and after attending Melbourne Grammar School, he graduated with a Bachelor of Commerce from the University of Melbourne. After a year of work experience in London, he joined the family company, which was engaged in import, export, manufacturing, and retailing of fur and leather products. With the demise of the fur industry in the mid-1980s, Tony established a trading and consulting business, Global Business Links, concentrating on China, where he had accumulated over 20 years of experience. Trade with China at that time was in its infancy, and Tony was a trailblazer. He was a founding board member and state president of the Australia-China Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and was vice president of the Australia-China Business Council. Tony was nominated for membership of the Rotary Club of Melbourne in 1978 by Rabbi Dr. Herman Sanger, At the time, Tony was the youngest member of the club at 37 years of age. I think we've broken that record. He was advised not to be a lunchtime member, but to actively participate as he did so with relish. His committee service was prodigious and far too extensive to outline here. However, I should mention the welfare of the young committee on which he served for over 4 decades. He was on the board for 4 years, vice president in 1993-94, and president of the club in 2002/3. Tony played a major role in fundraising activities, once again, far too numerous to mention, but we couldn't forget Operation Crossroads, Claremont Homes for the Aged, and the Baker Medical Research Centre. He was also very proud of his contribution in organising the very successful International Rotary Conference in Melbourne in 1993 and the establishment of the Arts Committee in his presidential year. In 1993, he was made a Paul Harris Fellow, and in July 2019, he was recognised with this club's highest accolade, Honorary Life Membership. In the 2004 Queen's Birthday Honours, Tony was awarded a Member in the Order of Australia for service to the development and of Australian business with links to China and to the community through the Rotary Club of Melbourne. Tony passed away last Friday morning after suffering from Parkinson's disease and dementia for many years. The club has lost a giant, and we have lost a dear friend. As they say in Hebrew, Zichrono Livracha. I'll say it again, Zichrono Livracha. May his memory be a blessing. Let us honour Tony with a moment of silence. Thank you. A service will be held this Thursday, tomorrow, 11 a.m. at Springvale Botanical Cemetery, Boyd Chapel, Princess Highway, Springvale. A reception will be held immediately afterwards at the Springvale Cafe next door. Vicky and the family advised all friends and colleagues are welcome. Please be seated. We will be breaking for lunch and will reconvene at 1:15. For those online, please take up the offer of the Zoom breakout rooms, which will open shortly. Members, visitors and guests, it is my pleasure to welcome you both to the 6th meeting of this Rotary year and our 4,997th club meeting in our 102nd year. It's wonderful to see you all here today, including those attending online. Today is a significant day in the club's calendar with the awarding of the Monash Medal. It is an honour to welcome the 2023 recipient, Richard Elkington, OAM. Richard will be more formally introduced shortly by past President Peter Rogers, Chair of the 0808 Committee, and is accompanied by Frank Warner. Would you please acknowledge and make them both welcome? As club guests, we welcome back previous Monash Medal recipients, Professor Peter Darville, AO, welcome, and Major General Jim Barry, AM, MBE, RFD, ED, RETD, welcome. Deputy Chairman, founding member of the Spirit of Australia Foundation. Also here is Michael Bennett, great-grandson of Sir John Monash, and would you please acknowledge and most welcome. We have visiting Rotarians today. Philip Mayers, former member, and his guest Rodney Levin, and Irina Bayer, guest of Bernie McIntosh and member of Rotary Club of Canterbury. I invite you to stand and please join me in making all of our visiting Rotarians, visitors and guests of members welcome. Thank you. Welcome. Would past President Adrian Nelson come to the podium? There we go. To remind us of the upcoming Angus Mitchell lunch.
Well, thank you, President Chris. It's great to have the opportunity with such a big crowd today and lots of visitors attending our club. Our club's very well known for its signature events. The Monash Medal, of course, is one where we acknowledge our president from 101 years ago, General Sir John Monash. And at the end of this month, on the 30th of August, we celebrate another one of our past presidents, Sir Angus Mitchell, who was, of course, the first world president of Rotary International from Australia. And we celebrate that with our annual Angus Mitchell oration, which will be held here at the Sofitel, but downstairs in the Grand Ballroom. And as our members know, but our guests may not, this year's guest speaker is the Honourable John Howard, who will be delivering the Angus Mitchell oration. He'll be the first past Prime Minister to actually deliver the oration, which we're very excited about that he's accepted our invitation. The other thing about that particular event is it's our club's 5,000th club meeting in history, so it's a great historic event. We currently have over 200 booked to come. We have a fixed limit in the Grand Ballroom and we're getting close to it. So what I would like to say is to our members, first of all, if you haven't booked, make sure you book, because we don't want any of our members missing out on this special, historic, great event. And to our visitors, please come. We still have room. I know there's a number, particularly from the Freemasons here today. It'll be wonderful to have a table from Freemasons Victoria. We have discounts for a table of 10. So let's book in and hear from a great Australian who'll be talking on the subject of global leadership. So to our members, please book this week, because we don't want you to miss out. To our guests, there's still room. And if anyone else has said to others, please come and they've got interest, book now, book early. And we look forward to having a full house downstairs on the 30th of August. Thank you.
Thank you, past President Adrian. We have a number of Rotarians committed to the newest area of our focus for Rotary, the environment. Peter Berg and Gary Fowler, chair of our club's Environment Sustainability Committee. At the recent RI Environmental Sustainability SRAG annual general meeting, Gary Fowler was awarded the joint SRAG Environment Volunteer of the Year Award 2023. Regional chapters for outstanding contribution to SRAG. Gary, I thought we'd take this opportunity to more formally present the award to you, and perhaps you can tell us briefly why you were chosen. So please come up.
Well, thanks, President Chris. Yes, this comes a bit of a surprise to me. I didn't know this was going to happen, but yes, I'm very pleased to have got this award. It's basically for the work that I've done in conjunction with particularly Roger Blakely in New Zealand, the calculator to enable people to clubs to calculate their emissions, and really other things that we've done in leadership in the environment, including really making it such a priority for this club, has demonstrated, like things like our food waste lunch and so on. So it's a great privilege to have received this award, and I very much appreciate the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. All right, now moving on to notices. Tony Greenwood celebrates his birthday today. Now, when he comes to lunch, we'll make sure that we give him a little cake. Secondly, the AGM 2023 nominations to the Nominating Committee. So the date of the Rotary Club of Melbourne Inc. annual general meeting has now been fixed as 22 November 2023. Formal notices will be issued in due course. The setting of the date of the annual general meeting triggers a series of events, starting with the formation of the Nominating Committee. The Nominating Committee consists of 9 members of the club, one of whom is myself, President. One is the President-elect. Two are the most recent past presidents available. Two are board members elected, and three are elected by the membership. I'm pleased to announce that the board has confirmed to the two past presidents to serve on the nominating committee. Immediate past president Adrian Nelson and past president Reg Smith. Thank you. And the board appointed members are Iqbal Retta and John Saunders. I now call for nominations for the three candidates elected by the members. Nominations may be made in a number by any member in writing, with each nomination being signed by the nominator and another member, and must carry acceptance of nomination signed by the member nominated. No past president is eligible for nomination by the members for any of the three vacancies. No member who has twice accepted membership on the nominating committee is eligible for service in any subsequent year, except as a presidential officer. Nominations must be made within 2 weeks, that is by 2:05 p.m. on Wednesday, 23 August 2023. Nomination forms and any questions should be directed to the Honorary Secretary John Saunders. Nomination forms are available today from Joe. And out of the business of the day, without further ado, I call to the podium our Chair of the Day, past President Peter Rogers, to take over the meeting.
Thank you, President Chris. It's my extraordinary pleasure to assist President Chris in the presentation of the Monash Medal for 2023 to Richard Elkington. But just a little bit of introduction first on the Monash Medal itself. John Monash, of course, was one of our club's founding members at the commencement of our club in 1921, and subsequently became our second president for the year 1922-23. On this day, talk about historic moments, there's always a historic moment in this club. 100 years to the day, John Monash himself stood here, except it was down at the town hall. He just stepped down as president of the club, and he was asked to say a few words at the club meeting about the Battle of Amiens. And the minute of our meeting 100 years ago contain this brief one-paragraph account of the battle, which greatly assisted, as you know, the end of the war in less than 100 days from the 8th of August. The club also had an official guest on that occasion, and that was Dr. David Rivett, who, like John Monash, had also spent time overseas during the war. In his case, he was working on the production of ammonium nitrate, the mining explosive, which is still used today. He married Stella Deakin, who was the daughter of our second Prime Minister, who he met at university, and later became the chairman of the CSIRO. There are other accounts of the Battle of Amiens. Wikipedia is one, but if you look at the Wikipedia entry, virtually word for word, the following words that John Monash spoke 100 years ago today at this club. The minutes record Sir John gave a most interesting address on the Battle of Amiens and spoke of the new tank that was used in this battle for the first time, and also of the new type of attack by the infantry. He described how at 20 minutes past 4, and it's still listed in Wikipedia at 20 minutes past 4 in the morning, the Canadian and Australian troops flanked by the French on that day, pushed forward and before nightfall broke through a frontage of the German lines 12 miles long and stood 5 or 6 miles inside the German lines. 10,000 prisoners were taken by the Australians on that day, and the biggest mobile gun captured during the war was captured by the Australians on that day. So that's straight out of the minutes of our meeting 100 years ago. Sir John's contribution to Victoria extended well beyond his war record, of course, and his counsel to all, and especially students, was adopt as your fundamental creed that you equip yourself for life, not solely for your own benefit, but for the benefit of the whole community. He was a great Australian by any measure. Our club has since 2010 awarded the Monash Medal to an outstanding Australian for the contribution of that person to the Australian community and beyond. The criteria for the awarding of the medal are 3 things: leadership, integrity, and service. Key Monash values, but core values of Rotary as well. This year, Richard Elkington has been selected for the award of our Monash Medal. Richard was born in Yallourn and raised in Newborough. He has the, I think, unique record of having started in the SCCV as a cadet engineer and finished as the general manager of the Loy Yang power station. There may have been others, but and as such, he's a unique awardee for this club in that he has spent his life in the industry which Sir John was so much associated with, the electricity industry in the Latrobe Valley. He's chaired Gippsland Water from 2000 to 2007, a former director of East Gippsland Water. He's supported innumerable local organisations and been chairman of many of them. He has been Grand Master of Freemasons Victoria, a men's fraternity with 7,500 members across the state, with an emphasis on self-improvement and charity to others. Richard was awarded an OAM a year ago in the Queen's Birthday Honours, and the citation said, Gippsland community worker Richard Elkington has been honoured with the Medal of the Order of Australia, OAM, in the Queen's Birthday Honours. Mr Elkington has been cited for service to the community through a range of roles. He has been recognised for a range of community activity, particularly in the promotion of the Latrobe Valley as a former chairman of Regional Development Gippsland and as a former board member of Gippsland Development Limited. President Chris, I would ask Richard Elkington to come and ask you to present the medal to him.
I'll now read the citation. Monash Medal 2023. General Sir John Monash is the most significant Australian for his professional, military and community leadership and service before, during and after World War I. Leadership, integrity and service, core values of Rotary, integral in the life of Sir John Monash, are the criteria for selecting the Monash Medal recipient. Award to Richard Elkington, OAM, for leadership, integrity and service in his outstanding contribution through his leadership in promoting and in community roles in multiple organisations of the Gippsland and Latrobe Valley region. I'll now ask Mike Bennett on the podium to provide the Monash Medal to Richard Elkington.
And here's the medal itself. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I like it.
Oh, I gave you a handshake.
There we go. So, hold on.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, President Chris. Richard, over to you to respond to the club.
Thank you very much.
Richard.
Just as well I don't write speeches because I'm now down to 20 minutes on a subject I talk about for hours, because not one day, hardly a day in my life in the energy sector where I couldn't wait to get to work. Work's so exciting. And why is that? Well, by the way, I should do the formal bit first. President Chris, Peter, Michael Bennett. It's a great thrill actually to be presented with this medal by Sir John Monash's grandson. We have a number of distinguished guests here, including past winners of the Sir John Monash Medal. Peter Darville, there's another one here too, isn't there? Peter Darville's here. We've got the former Governor General, Peter Hollingworth, whom I was delighted to meet again at the entrance to this meeting. Work in the electricity industry was extremely exciting. I was born in Yallourn, of Scottish immigrant parents who came here to work in the electricity undertakings in the Latrobe Valley. My grandfather became a teacher at Yallourn Tech School. My father was firstly a tradesman and then an operator at Yallourn Power Station. Lived mostly in Newborough, not Moe, Newborough. And I get time of day by the whistle, which was the whistle from the Emden, from Yallourn Power Station. It went off about 4:15 every afternoon. I became dux of the secondary school, so SEC plucked me out of obscurity, gave me a scholarship to pursue mechanical engineering. I didn't have any say in it, that's what I was given. Paid for all the fees, got holidays. My holiday was working in the electricity undertakings. In fact, the first year's holidays was working at Yallourn Power Station when the old A station was still in operation. What an exciting place that was. Then the final year, mechanical engineering, I did a 2-year cadetship, spent 6 months at Yallourn Power Station, which was then C, D and E station with bits of B, the turbo generator bits. I must admit, I did find work completely unchallenging and undemanding. I wanted work that totally consumed me. Because the TC was largely about form rather than substance, start on time, finish on time is not real. And I very well, but I always wanted to sing, so I joined the theatre company. I got involved with politics to pursue a better society. Got involved with the Freemasons. Look, a set of values to frame my life. My first management was the only one that I ever wanted at the old Yallourn Power Station. 350 people operating the place to produce less than 400 megawatts. That's pretty good productivity, isn't it? Pretty good productivity. And I described the place I was working, I described it as romantic. What I really meant was emotional. And I stepped on the factory floor where thousands had gone before, since the 1920s. Thousands of river water, circulating water from men still there in the 19th, who'd been there pre-war, who'd been there. They recommended you heat your pie on the turbine bearing between the high pressure and low pressure cylinders of a C-station turbo generator. It got exactly the right temperature. I met a fellow who was in the same unit as my father in the Royal Air Force during World War II. There's all sorts of really interesting people, but you had to work through people to get things done. I was captain of the Latrobe River. A couple of things were erected to enable the whole energy system to work in the Latrobe Valley. One was there was a weir created on the Latrobe River, which I managed to manage the right sort of temperatures of the water being discharged. And also the Yallourn Storage Dam, or Lake Narracam, was created in the late 1950s to again provide another 6 gigalitres of water to service the power industry. So the place was steeped in history, and I had this feeling I was walking the same steps that hundreds and probably thousands of men had walked before me. Men who gave their lives, in many cases literally, for the power industry. So what's John Monash got to do with all this, you might ask? Well, his vision was essentially initially realised in the place I started work. Electricity was generated by the house set on I think it was the 1st of June 1924. So next year, Yallourn will celebrate 100 years of electricity generation from the Latrobe Valley. Monash recognised the potential of the enormous brown coal deposits of the Latrobe Valley. He saw that the region would become an economic energy powerhouse, which underpinned the manufacturing strength of Victoria. And I worked in corporate relations. That's the sort of line I used. We've helped to create Victoria as the manufacturing state. What happened to that? What do we make now? So the vision that he and others, Hyman Herman is actually seen to be the father of Yallourn. Not John Monash, but John Monash drove this. Herman said that Monash was the only real leader that he worked for in 37 years in the industry. So Monash's vision drove the skills, development, the resources, the history, the infrastructure to realise the development of 30% of the world's lignite. We have 30% of this enormous energy source right here in the Latrobe Valley, in Victoria. And many in our society would prefer that it just be concreted over and forgotten about. I know Barry Jones in a previous speech spoke about the skills he enunciated, I think it was the top 11 skills that Monash possessed. What are some of the ones that impressed me? And by the way, there's an enormous amount of research work on the skills possessed by Sir John Monash. He preferred substance over style, which is a real issue in the Freemasons, actually. What I mean by that is, wasn't so concerned about the shininess of someone's boots, or whether they gave the salute correctly, or whether they were properly attired. It was the essential worth of the individual and the contribution he could make to whatever the enterprise was that was important. He was capable of managing and immersing himself in detail when it was required. I'm capable of immersing myself in detail, but I choose not to. So I got here an hour early. He brought people on the journey. For me, this is almost the essence of leadership. Bringing those who work for you, those around you, those whom you're advocating for, bring them on the journey, involve them in the process. Use a conference style to settle on a plan, don't vary from the plan, implement it. He had a huge network of personal alliances. In many ways, that's how I kept my job in the Latrobe Valley. I knew so many people, I'd been there forever. And when we were privatised, I was retained because I always assume they didn't know who I knew. He was great at planning and organising. He was very politically astute, Probably like me, I like politicians. I think I understand them. And so I know how to engage with them. By the way, so I shouldn't tell this anecdote, but Ernesto Ciroli, some of you would have heard of Ernesto, practices enterprise facilitation, gives speeches worldwide on the subject. He said, the difference I observe in Australia is those industries, those individuals who deal with government in Australia say, oh, thank you, Minister. Thank you for giving me my money. Thank you for giving me the swimming pool when what I really wanted was a manufacturing business. Thank you for your graciousness and your generosity in giving me my money. Whereas in the United States, the process is, Minister, you work for me. I pay your bills. This is what I want, and I want it now. It does work, actually. It does work. I'm convinced it works. Unless somebody knows what you want, you're not going to get it. Energy, passion, humility is a quality which many leaders or people who call themselves leaders do not display in any sense. He understood the nature and the character of his soldiers and his subordinates. He personally associated himself with marketing the vision. Personally. No hired PR company out there sort of conditioning the masses, conditioning major stakeholders. He did it himself. And I could go on and on and on. There's that many studies being written about Sir John Monash. So what was delivered? What was delivered by that vision? Well, we've got your Lawn A station. And then B followed in 1932. Just think about it. A station with 6 12.5 megawatt turbo generators. So work that out. 75 megawatts. That was it. The supply Victoria. 75. We got the Yallourn mine. We got the township of Yallourn, a model garden town. I went to the pictures there. Had a tech school to provide skilled engineering and science graduates for the industry. It had a pool. It had a hospital. It had modern, up-to-date, contemporary facilities, essentially for the Latrobe Valley. There was research into brown coal science, into brown coal products. We had a railway line to Yallourn. We had huge infrastructure development to service the industry of the Latrobe Valley. You know, freight, wastewater, transmission lines, etc., etc. And of course, one of the most difficult tasks for John Monash was actually endeavouring to deal with the municipal electrical undertakings which used to operate in Victoria. And most of them existed, some of them existed until quite recently. The problem had to be dealt with again as a consequence of privatisation. I could go on and talk about the development of the power industry. In fact, last time I gave this talk, it was an hour and a half without notes. So when did things start to change? So what's happened down there in the valley? We often read about that in the Metro Press, you know, the downtrodden and oppressed in the Latrobe Valley. Well, the last power station got built in 1996. That was the last unit, last development. There's been a series of closures since. The corporatisation of the businesses, the downsizing commenced in the late 1980s. There was corporatisation, which is essentially breaking up into single units, own boards, That commenced in 1995. And then the business I was associated with, which was Loy Yang Power, that was privatised to a group of American investors in 1997 for $5 billion. $5 billion. And would reduce the numbers in the Latrobe Valley from something of the order of an excess of 10,000 directly employed by the industry down to about 2,000, with many more on contract. Much sympathy for the Latrobe Valley during all that? Don't think so. I think the general view was, these guys down there, they've all been in subsidised jobs for years. You know, the Puffin report in 1975 said that through all of the economic downturns, almost since 51, the Depression, the Latrobe Valley had never suffered any ill effects of economic downturn because of the continued presence of the energy sector. Created a dependent society with a cargo cult mentality. This is all, I'm assuming this is Chatham House rules. We created a dependent society. Everything depended on the next power station being announced by the SEC. Community groups were funded, but the social impact of that change was horrendous, terrible. We all read historically about you could buy a house in Maui for $17,000. It's true. And associated with that, of course, was bits of the SEC, which had been part of a vertically integrated energy model, were blown to pieces. So we had the Herman, after Herman research laboratories, doing all sorts of research on lignite in association with universities like Monash or Melbourne. All of that had to be re-established under different entities. SEC had funded all of that. It wasn't there anymore. Now the mission of a private power generator and mine operator is to generate returns, to pay back the interest. When you pay $5 billion for a power company, I mean, it's all about the finance, isn't it? By the way, the first owners of Loy Yang lost their shirts. The place had to be revalued, and a new set of owners came in. So my worry currently is, I'm not arguing, and I can't, and I didn't when I was there. I can't argue for the continued use of brown coal for power generation, even though there are some really interesting models to do that with relatively high efficiency. I've actually managed research for the power generators of the Latrobe Valley. They're in fact a carbon capture plant at Loy Yang right now. Carbon capture and storage was that was the talk of the town back in the late 2000s when Kevin Rudd put money on the table for it. Brown Coal Innovation Australia was established. They had difficulties even getting funding out of the state government. Sorry, the state Labor government. In fact, the Liberal party's no better. Created the vision for, I remember an engagement with Michael O'Brien when he was minister, and I said, oh, Michael, somebody really needs to do something about the social licence for the continued use of brown coal. Oh yeah, you're right, somebody should do something. And I said, do you know who that is, Michael? And he said, no. I said, it's you. You own the coal. It's your coal. We might have under licence. By the way, Michael, I've actually got a plan that can turn that around. I'll see my advisor. Of course, nothing happened. So both governments have been, in fact, spooked by the hysteria over climate change. The brown coal roadmap we produced in 2012 never released. A urea project, which has been on the books now for 20 years. Guy can't get coal. EPA canned under the state Liberal government integrated dry and gasification combined cycle plant with co-firing on gas. There's a direct injection coal engine, carbon engine. Diesel designed his engines for running on coal, would you believe? I could go on and HESC. Hydrogen seems to be one of the themes of this age, particularly in Japan. State government has said, ministers have said, there'll be no more brown coal projects in Victoria, none. The market's interested, government's not. So there's a few of us in the Latrobe Valley trying to keep the brown coal lignite vision alive. Sir John Monash, SEC, the people who worked there, believed in the potential of that vision. It's not just about the emotional attachment I have to the valley and the fact that I eat brown coal for breakfast. It's not about that. It's about the economics. It's about the jobs. It's about the products we need for export, import replacement. And for me, it's about a continued prosperous future for Victoria. So I'll keep arguing for it. Thank you very much.
Richard, a fantastic speech, thank you, and a wonderful personal history of the second 50 years of the vision of Sir John Monash. So I'm sure I speak for all of us here when I say thank you to a very worthy winner of the Monash Medal. Thank you. Thank you. You can sit down, mate. Richard, thank you again on behalf of us all. In closing the meeting, I'd like to thank all our visitors and guests who have attended today. Thanks also to our MC, Peter Davis, and the reflections from Stephen Lake, and our lunch setup and reception teams for their weekly effort making all of this happen. Please, if you can, stay back for a few minutes to help with the pack-up. They'd be appreciative. A reminder that next week we meet here at number 35, and our guest speaker will be Ron Payne, the new district governor for our district, 9800, and he'll speak on creating hope in the world. So I hope that you'll all be here to join us.